Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki jai, Sri Radha Giridhari ki jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jai Jashutada Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jai Jashutada Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samveda Bhakti ki jai, Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, assembled devotees, all glories, assembled devotees, all glories, Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So there's a story Srila Prabhupada tells about there's one gentleman that I guess you wouldn't say his enemies wanted to get rid of him, and they've contrived a plan to convince him he was a ghost and he would kill himself. So what they did was he was on his way to work or whatever along the road, and they set up different people along the road that whenever he came by, they said, "It's a ghost! It's a ghost!" Srila Bhaktisiddhanta tells the story. It's a ghost, it's a ghost. He's the first person said, "What's this? What's going on?" He looked over his shoulder. "Oh, there's no ghost." And then, but so many people kept saying it to him. By the time he got there, he figured he was a ghost. I think he drowned himself, right? He killed himself. Yes. So in other words, he got the hint. You know, it was an unfortunate situation. But so when Mukunda Charan put this volume of the Bhagavatam down on this, I thought of that because I mentioned earlier about the size of the verses listing, and then the small. I think everyone's trying to. And if we get a ninth canto and you hand me even a smaller volume of the Bhagavatam, I think he's trying to get rid of me because I can't see. The font's so small. It's just gradually working me out because like that. He can't see. He can't see. I can't see. So the books are getting smaller and smaller. Like that. So font is small and small. Is that what you're going to put here for the ninth canto? That's my last canto before I retire, right? That's it. Okay. So.
The desire to sell sets.
Yeah. Okay. But no one can see them. You got to be like under 25 or 30 to see them.
Everything we sell in sets, and you have to be able to read it, but
Okay. Okay. I wonder what the demographic is. Do you know, Balaram, or anyone? What is the demographic of, like, age for people who buy our sets? And, read them. Yeah. It'd be interesting to find out. Maybe it is a bunch of young people. Young people are thought, like Prabhupada said, old bamboo, it doesn't bend. So maybe it is in their 20s. But so okay. So we have 7 and 8, correct?
no, 8 and 9.
Oh, 8. It's 8 and 9. I'm sorry. Okay, I thought maybe they put the verse on that had the big purport. Okay. So we chant from 8. Sunanyam. Sunandayam Varsha Shatam Padaikina Bhuvam Sprishan Tapyamanas Tapo Ghoram Idam Anvaha Bharata. Okay? On here and here. Yes. Okay. Sunandayam Vashashatam Padakina Bhuvam Sprishan Tapyamanas Tapogoram Idam Anvaha Bharata. Sunandayam Varshashatam Padaikina Bhuvam Sprisham Tapyamanas Tapogoram Idam Anvaha Bharata. Sunandayam Varshashatam Padaikina Bhuvam Sprishan Triptamanas Tapo Gauram idam anvaha bharata. Please chant.
Sunandayam varshishatam.
Sunandayam.
Padayakena bhavam sprishan. Tapyamanastapo ghoram. Idaman vaha bharata. Sunandayam varshishatam. Padayakena bhavam sprishan. Tapyamanastapo ghoram. Idaman vaha bharata.
Sunandayam varshasatam.
Sunandayam varshishatam.
Padaikena bhuvam sprishan.
Padayakena bhavam sprishan.
Tapyamanastapo ghoram.
Tapyamanastapo ghoram.
Idaman vaha bharata.
Idaman vaha bharata. Sunandayam varshishatam. Padayakena bhavam sprishan. Tapyamanastapo ghoram. Idaman vaha bharata. Idam Sunandayam varshishatam. Padayakena bhavam sprishan. Tapyamanastapo
Tabhangoram idam anvaha bharata. Ladies?
Sunandayam varshishatam.
Padayakena bhuvam sprisham. Tapyamanastapo gauram idam anvaha bharata. Anyone else, wherever they may be? Okay, word for word. Sunandayam. On the bank of the river Sunanda. Varshashatam. For 100 years. Padayakena. On one leg. Bhuvam. The earth. Sprishan. Touching. Tapyamana. He performed austerities. Tapaha. Austerities. Goram. Very, very severe. Idam, the following. Anvaha, and spoke. Bharata, O sign of Bharat. Translation, O sign of Bharata, after Swayambhuva Manu had thus entered the forest with his wife, he stood on one leg on the bank of the river Sunanda, and in this way, with only one leg touching the earth, he performed great austerities for 100 years. While performing these austerities, he spoke as follows. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that the word anvaha means that he chanted or murmured to himself, not that he lectured to anyone. Okay. Okay, let's do the next one. We'll go back, maybe cover both verses. Text 9. Shri Manur Uvacha Yena Chetayate Vishvam Vishvam Chetayate Nayam Yo Jagarti Shayane Smin Nayam Tam Veda Vedasaha. Translation. Lord Manu said, the Supreme Living Being has created this material world of animation. It is not that he was created by this material world. When everything is silent, the Supreme Being stays awake as a witness. The living entity does not know him, but he knows everything. Purport. Here is a distinction between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. According to the Vedic version, the Lord is the Supreme Eternal, the Supreme Living Being. The difference between the Supreme Being and the ordinary living being is that when this material world is annihilated, all the living entities remain silent in oblivion, in a dreaming or unconscious condition, whereas the Supreme Being stays awake as a witness of everything. This material world is created, it stays for some time, and then it is annihilated. Throughout these changes, however, the Supreme Being remains awake. In the material condition of all living entities, there are 3 stages of dreaming. When the material world is awake and put in working order, this is a kind of dream, a waking dream. When the living entity goes to sleep, they dream again. And when unconscious at the time of annihilation, when this material world is unmanifested, they enter another stage of dreaming. At any stage in this material world, therefore, they are all dreaming. In the spiritual world, however, everything is awake. Is anyone tired? Okay. So, Om Agyan Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksuranmita Vismai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadandikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakti Barinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhashya Kripa Sindhu Bhavacha Paridanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. May all the Vaishnavas in the lotus-like hearts that you possess, please bless me that I can say a few words to inspire myself and all of you in our Krishna consciousness. Thank you. Now, I have a problem with this. The two of you are sitting behind Dravida and I can't see you. And you may not be able to see me. So you just move a little bit so you can be seen and see. Okay, thank you. Unless when you're growing up as kids, you always like to be in the back of the classroom and hide from the teacher. Like that. Okay. So, one question I had is, why stand on one leg? What is that?
Well, I happen to know the problem.
Okay.
Because I'm old, and they know, how they get the algorithm, so I'm always getting all these things in the mail from WebMD, how you can take care of your knees, whatever. So they had this thing that said, well, this is a measure of your health, how long you could stand on one leg, because it involves balance, the whole thing. And they said, if you're over 70 and you can stand for
100 years or more?
No, 15 seconds. That's really good, So I tried it. You have to stand on your other leg. In other words, not your right leg, your righty, then you stand on your left leg. So I was standing on my left leg. And I was able to do it for about 1 minute and 12 seconds, And so I Googled that because they know everything, AI, What does it mean for someone's health if you can stand on one leg for 1 minute and 12 seconds and you're over 70? It's, you're in fantastic health, So anyway, it's hard, that you have to constantly shifting and balancing and doing this whole thing. So to stand on one leg for, 100 years?
Yes.
Very good health. I mean, that's a sort of austerity, and it's a sign of tremendous self-control, and you get so much benefit from it like that. It's like any other austerity,
If you can stand on your leg for 100 years, it's a sign you're likely to live to 100.
Yes. Yes. Longevity. Dirghayusham Bhava. So it just shows that there are different austerities recommended for different ages. Just amongst ourselves, if someone said, Prabhu, I think you should be a little more austere. And then we went in the kitchen and Sankarshan standing on his one leg in the kitchen. No. We would say, chant some extra rounds. Go on Sankirtan a few extra hours, or those are austerities in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's in Kali Yuga. Maybe a little less eating, things like that. But these are things for a previous age. And to be able to fix your mind, you mentioned this about what's the website? WebMD. Guess I haven't been initiated yet. The day will come. But I remember hearing a lecture, this one person was saying that if you look at your watch, of course people don't wear watches, this is from about 20 years ago. If you look at your watch, it's the kind that goes around, not the digital kind. If you can look at your watch and look at your second hand, and for 1 minute, actually your mind doesn't go to something else. It's almost impossible. Just showing about focus, the ability to focus on something. Most people can't even do 60 seconds. Can't do 60 seconds. So the mind is so flickering. Chanchala himana Krishna. So flickering to be able to focus it. Of course, why he was not just standing on Hiranyakashipu, standing on his tiptoes. So he's performing great austerities. So what's the difference between him and Swayambhuva Manu? Well, here the first verse came, he murmured, just like you murmur your Gayatri. Just quietly murmuring. He's meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and glorifying Him, whereas the demons, they perform austerities to become very, very powerful, to wreak havoc in this universe, in the world. So, but it's quite interesting here. I wonder what his wife did for 100 years. You know, hey, let's go to the forest. Hey, that sounds like a great idea. Wait, just right here. And he stands on his leg for 100 years and murmurs. No, she must have been very patient like that. Of course, the Manus, 100 years is a long time for us, but how long do they live for? Yeah, it might have been just like the weekend. Or is it 100 of their years or 100 of our years? You know what I'm saying? You know, so. But anyways, this is, and he's meditating. He's one of our Mahajans, right? Swayambhuva Manu is one of the Mahajans. So he's giving some instruction here, his meditation. So, Prabhupada's saying here, this is a difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. That Prabhupada's bringing out a few points here in the purport, that Krishna is always awake. Krishna is always awake. Living entities pretty much in the material world asleep, and he's described 3 different levels of consciousness. Now, we think we're all awake. Does everyone here feel like they're awake, pretty much? Okay. About as good as it's going to get. That's called, as Prabhupada said, daydream, night dream. Right? So dreaming means it's not real. Right? It's not real. Even though during our dreams, we dream about so-called real things. You know, Prabhupada gives the example, gold and a gold mountain. During the day you saw gold, you saw a mountain, at night you dreamed of a gold mountain. Like that. But we dream of different personalities and different places and so on. But they're all mixed up and you know, it's not real. And also it's temporary. It's temporary in that sense. But, and then we go to sleep at night, and then there's more dreaming. And we forget the day body. Completely forget the day body. It's all gone, and we're thinking flying through the sky or this or that, or we go back in time. And maybe go into the future. So all kinds of things are happening, but we're completely forgetful that we're lying there asleep. And the subtle body just takes off. And then the third one Prabhupada mentions here is a time of annihilation. It's like what they call a coma. Coma is completely unconscious. I don't know how to more describe it than that. It's just sometimes they put people into a induced coma in the hospital. There's some kind of trauma to their body, and they just put them into an induced coma to suspend practically their life until they can figure out what to do with the situation. Usually has to do with the brain and all kinds of seizures and bleeding and this and that. So they just put them into a coma. I don't know how they do it. How do they hit them in the head with a hammer? Some kind of drug or something like that. They just, and the person's completely unconscious. And they can bring them out. Like they can bring them out. So these different levels of consciousness are there, and it's interesting to note that even though when we are awake, we're actually dreaming. We're actually dreaming because this isn't really who we are, just like Prabhupada says in the last line of the purport, the last line, about in the spiritual world, however, everything is awake. Completely awake. Awake would be awareness. Just like if you start falling asleep in class, then you just lose awareness of what's going on. And someone calls on you and says, Sangashan, what's the answer? What's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita? Janma karma jivi divyam. No, that's not the one. So you're completely unaware of, I'm picking on you. Hare Krishna. Yeah, okay. Right? We lose awareness of what's going on around us. So-called reality. We just kind of drift off. So that is that's the jiva. That's the difference between the soul and the supersoul. The supersoul never drifts off. He's always fully conscious, and not just self-realized soul is conscious also in the sense they never drift off, but they're never the jiva is not conscious of all living entities. I think Prabhupada is kind of referring to this in the verse in the Bhagavad Gita. What is that? How does that go? Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani bhutani na tu veda nakaschana. Right? So what does that mean? Mam tu veda. No, what is it? How to begin again? My memory is so short. How did I just start at that one? Vedam, I know all living entities. I know all living entities. I know past, present, and future. I know every single living entity. Not like, hey, how's it going? Like a friend. I know perfectly well, eternally. Mam tu veda nakashtina, but me no one knows. That's the difference. What does it mean, us and God? Krishna says, I know past, present, and future.
I know everything that's happened in the past, everything that's happening now, everything happening in the future.
Yeah, but me, no one knows. He knows all. Right. And, I could ask you, what were you doing last Thursday at 12 o'clock? At night. Even that we don't know. No, just like 5 minutes. I mean, what were you doing a half hour ago? I don't know exactly where we forget. We forget. But Krishna doesn't forget. He's always awake. Forgetfulness, ignorance, that's a symptom of the material energy. Spiritual energy, it's absent. The soul is free, completely conscious. And that consciousness is it, someone may say that consciousness is just bliss, eternity. That's what the impersonalists want to, yes, they want to go beyond the darkness of this material world. What is that verse? About, asatoma, like that, out of the darkness into the light. Tamasima, jyotirgama, like that, out of the darkness into the light. It's like a jingle for an airline or something, into the light above the clouds or something like that. But and they say it's just, yes, it's wonderful. It's out of the ignorance of this material world, and it's just bliss and eternity. And that's it forever. It's for the Vaishnava. That's really boring. It's horrible. It's like hell. It's hell. Narakayate. It's hell. No, awake means to be awake to our eternal relationship with Krishna, Satchidananda, blissful relationship with Krishna in devotional service. So if you don't have that, then we're in ignorance. We're in a dreaming state. And this whole material world, he says here, it's the world of animation. I guess that would mean not just like we're moving, but animation is a type of art form of just people make stuff up, right? Animation. In fact, now they have, when we grew up, you had things like Donald Duck and Bugs Bunny and the cartoons, they called them, on Saturday morning. Everyone was glued to the TV watching cartoons and commercials about Captain Crunch and who knows what else. But now they have computer animation, and it gets pretty good as far as mimicking what we see in our day-to-day life, the so-called reality of it. But it's all animation. It's just animation. It's not, you could say, it's not really there. Someone created it in a computer, just like in the old days they created it. In fact, you see these old these shows about when animation started. There was a whole bunch of pages, and they drew a little bit, and that's how it went. And then it looked like someone was moving, but they're not. So it's come a long way. It's very, very sophisticated, but Krishna is still far, far ahead of them. So forgetfulness of Krishna, that's our dreaming state. It's animation. And how to become free from it, that's the big question. And this will be brought out as we go further and further into the chapter. And of course, that's the whole purpose of the Bhagavatam, is to awaken the soul from their dreaming state. But it's quite interesting, and I think it's in the third canto also. There are other places where they go into detail. It's gone into detail, these different levels of consciousness, so-called awake, dreaming, and then deep sleep. And of course, the soul has to go into deep sleep. At the time of annihilation, you are put to rest. You know, it's like they have these sci-fi movies where people are in outer space and they're all in these little capsules, and they're in this spaceship for like 100 years or whatever, because they're going to some star that's very far away. They're in some kind of suspended animation. They have to be. And just and yogis can do it also. Yogis can do that also. Were you telling me that the other day? Ramapati, what were you saying about some yogi? You knew of some yogi who could do something. But there is a book, Marichi Budur, Surviving Just on Sunlight. But a yogi. It's all documented with doctors and all that. You just look at the sun, and then that would be it. You didn't need to drink or nothing. Was it offered? Okay. But Marichi Dewari gave me a book once. I think the author's name began with like Bennett or something. He was a British officer in India. And, he wanted to debunk all this stuff going on in India, all these charlatan yogis and this and that and so on. So he made an extensive tour of India, interviewing the big ones and little ones and all that. And of course, he did find many of them were charlatans, just a sleight of hand or something. But the book is primarily all about the ones that were real. And it just blew your mind. How yogis, and a few of them doctors were there, British doctors were there, and they would go into suspended animation, and actually for all practical purposes, they were dead. Then at free will, they would just come back to life. Of course, you think, wow, that's pretty amazing, but there are creatures who can do that also. Like frogs and go into hibernation. Sometimes they talk about these frogs that they break open the earth and so on. Some frog jumps out, and it's been in there for maybe 1,000 years or a few hundred years. So it's like frog yoga, But the point is, they can actually do that, suspended animation, just to slow it all down. But you have to do that if at the time of annihilation, everything just becomes practically dissolved, and the living entity just goes into a deep, deep sleep. And then when Lord Brahma creates again, we have to come back out and start exactly where we left off. And I remember Hridayananda Maharaj once said that the reason that is there is because the jiva needs a rest. They've been millions of years trying to enjoy this body, that body, Brahma, all demigods. It's like, whew, it gets pretty tiring just knocking your head against the wall trying to enjoy this material world. So you just need a rest. Get your energy back up to go at it again. So on one hand, Krishna's facilitating the jiva to take a rest for a while and go back out. And hopefully one of these creations will learn our lesson and want to get free from the dreaming condition of life. So this is the Bhagavatam is compared to a torchlight of knowledge, right? The torch of knowledge to illuminate the dark age of Kali in all of our hearts. And the holy name sometimes is referred, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, it rises in the heart, the effulgent holy name to illuminate the heart. So this is to wake us up from this dreaming state. So all different stages of the dreaming state. And then the self-realized soul, he's no longer in that dreaming state. He's seeing Krishna. That's the light. Was that Krishna Surya Sam Hoya Maya Andakar? Right, that. Krishna's like the sun. And when you see the sun, just like you see Krishna, there's no more Maya. When you see the sun, there's no more darkness. So awake means you see, to the extent we're seeing Krishna, which means serving Krishna or Krishna conscious, then that darkness is all gone. The dreaming is all gone. We're actually awake in Krishna consciousness. So those are a few thoughts on today's verses. But it's quite interesting. Krishna is always awake. That means can't pull a fast one on him, right? Krishna doesn't miss a thing. Now, Prabhupada also said there's another personality who never sleeps also in this material world. Who's that? Now, this person, well, actually, time is a person, Kalarupa, but Maya. She doesn't sleep. She just does. You can't get away from that either. She's always there because she has a thankless task of always testing us and pushing us and helping us get out of the material world any way she can. Sometimes it's pain and sometimes mercy, whatever it is, but she also doesn't sleep. She's not on vacation. It's like, hey, this is great. Maya's on vacation this week. You know, we can do whatever we want. No, it doesn't happen like that. Krishna's always on vacation. That's, if you want to call it that. He's always ananda, enjoying, but he's always completely awake. He's our best friend. He's in our heart. But Maya's also awake. So who are we going to choose? Like that. You know, we fall asleep, but they don't fall asleep. And the great souls don't fall asleep. And they're always saying, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gora Chandra Bole. Lord Chaitanya. Someone's doing, you doing frog yoga? So, wake up, wake up, wake up, sleeping souls. How long will you sleep on the lap of the witch called Maya? Like that. So, devotees don't want to, and even sleeping, Prabhupada's a waste of time. Prabhupada saying a waste of time. So it's a whole different consciousness, but just this dreaming. You know, they talk about, a dream, but then sometimes the poets will say, yeah, but it could be a nightmare. You know, sometimes dreams are the way they're used is something positive, a hope for the future, something good, and a nightmare is what happens. So all our dreams of this material world ultimately turn to nightmares. I'm sad to say. It's just time just smashes everything. So it's best that we wake up as soon as we can. Wake up, like that. So we can end here. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I have one comment that's about the coma. I think Prabhupada said, because I listen to so many lectures every day, that this is a sign of, if someone is in a coma, a lot of times even politicians, they're in a coma because they're doing so much nonsense and so much, bad things to people, and so they're going to call it kind of a punishment. And I remember there's this one, I'm not going to name any names or even nationality because you may figure it out, but he was in a coma for years. They couldn't wake him up, they didn't want to kill him, and they just let him stay there in that coma for years, and eventually he died. But I have a question for Ramapati that maybe he can answer, because this famous Tamasi Ma Jyotirgamata Mrityu Ma Amitam Gama. Prabhupada would always, when he would share that, he would sometimes quote that. And it was always an imperative. Don't stay in the darkness, come to the light. Don't stay in birth and death, come to the eternal, I think. But but with my work, I looked it up one time to see the spelling or something, and it was like a prayer. Tamasi ma jyotir gamaya. Ma meaning not, because ma means not, but it also means me. It can also mean me. So, oh Lord, please take me from darkness to immortality.
Always pray when they perform the yoga first, they do this sloka.
Yeah, so they see it as a prayer. The verb gamaya is a request, right? Take me from, oh Lord, take me from darkness to light, from death to immortality, from temporary to eternal. But Prabhupada would always see it as an imperative. Hey, jiva soul, wake up! Don't stay in the darkness. Go to the light. Right? It's interesting.
We talk about like reducing sleep, for example. I guess it just depends on the individual. I mean, Srila Prabhupada would say you could sleep however long it takes you to feel refreshed. And at least in the conversation, he said, oh, well, for some that's 8, for some that's 7, for some that's 6, for some that's 5. It depends on the individual. But I mean, of course, the 6 Goswamis. I mean, to make it to that level, that seems out of reach. But I mean, is there like a general? I mean, possible? Is there like a general standard that someone should shoot for? I mean, over time, should they say, okay, well, I want to try to reduce? Because some devotees say, I need 7 hours, like in a 24-hour period. Should they think, okay, forget about it, just 6 hours is fine, or even further than that, 5 hours is fine? What do you think about that?
When I wake up, I'll tell you. There's a few things, and Dravida can speak also on this. One thing is that it's true with any kind of standard in our spiritual life. It will differ from when we start and then we've been around for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Not just experience and advancement, but also your body aging and so on. That's true. You mentioned different devotees, according to their body, they may need different amounts of sleep and their engagements. You have a devotee, maybe a scholar, or you got someone out farming all day long. The body just needs different amounts of food and different amounts of you're practical. Now, Prabhupada over and over again say 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours. In a normal circumstance, 6 hours is enough. Now, as far as restful sleep, there's a few things. If one is a peaceful person, one's mind, because not only our body working tires us out, but even more our mind. If one is not a very peaceful and satisfied person, and the mind's always just going and going, that can really tire you out also. So that's one thing. Prabhupada also mentioned about not eating at night and reducing the amount you eat. I think that's in there in Bhishma Dev's instructions about how to reduce sleep. There's one section. So don't eat too much, because it takes a lot of energy for your body to digest all the food. And don't eat at night. Don't eat past 5 o'clock. Things like that. That can really make it difficult for you to sleep. And also, when one is enlivened in Krishna consciousness, one doesn't feel like sleeping. That famous conversation when George Harrison visited Prabhupada at the manor, and they're both talking how they just so enlivened what they're doing, they don't want to sleep. George was saying, I just can't find, I have so much to do and this and that. And Prabhupada said, me too. I'm so excited about what I'm doing and spreading Krishna consciousness. I just don't feel like sleeping. It's not like, I'm really tired. No, I just don't feel like sleeping. So one becomes enlivened. It's a symptom, just like the 6 Goswamis. How were they able to live like that? Because they were just so excited. Excited is not the word. They were, what is the verse? They were surfacing and diving in the waves of devotional service. Yeah. So sleeping is like, I can't even think of doing it. I'm just surfacing and diving in the ocean of devotional service. So you want to minimize it because you got so much else to do. So those are some thoughts. But when one matures, one can make mature decisions about their different aspects of their life. And when one's immature, they probably need some help from someone else. So that's what I'm saying as far as one's beginning, one's spiritual life, and also Prabhupada I was listening, he was talking about some conversation with someone about when you're older, you can't sleep. Oh no, it was Shruti Kirti, when he became Prabhupada's servant. It was the first few days, and Prabhupada wanted to take a nap in the afternoon. And he was just kind of almost apologizing to Shruti Kirti. He said, but when you're an old man, you can't sleep long periods at once at night, so I can't do that, so I need to take a little nap in the afternoon. It's like that. So the body changes and so on, but one can make a mature, but you shouldn't be artificial. We've had devotees try that. Okay, Prabhu, I'm going for like 3 hours or just 4 hours, and if it's before your time, it's artificial, and all things will just fall apart. So one has to be very careful. Very careful, because unfortunately there's car accidents and all kinds of things like that. You have to be really, really careful. I remember, Preeti Shrava, wonderful devotee. But he was my Sankirtan leader, and I was too young to get a driver's license, so I used to sit with him in the front seat, and I would be responsible to keep him awake. talking to him. Bhagavad Gita is like, because in those days it was like, go, 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 and he was really tired, so I was responsible to try to keep him awake while he was driving. Remember that conversation? Very important service. You always worry about the two devotees in the front seat. If both fall asleep, we're all finished. So you got to be really intelligent about this. So, you want to say anything else with that about sleeping?
Well, just back to WebMD. They know I'm old, so I'm always getting things. I told you that. So there's this whole thing of how, what they studied, how the brain does a certain thing at night, and then it kind of clears out, some garbage or something, So that what the karmis say is that as you get older, you have to get enough sleep to allow that to happen, and they recommend a minimum of 7 hours, but so because that the brain, there's a certain regeneration that takes place, and if you don't give it time to do that, then you're going to speed up your diminishment of your memory and stuff like that. So this is something I have to work on because I tend to work late, and get up early, so they get
10 o'clock, right?
Huh?
10 o'clock it all starts.
Yeah.
I forget what they called it, but that regeneration starts at 10 p.m., and if you stay up past 10 p.m., you're going into your regeneration time.
Yeah.
That's why people have graveyard shifts. They never get used to it. It just, that's why my daughter Tulsi is a nurse, but her first few years was the graveyard shift. That's not the right way to say because it was in labor and delivery, but night shift.
Yeah.
Night shift, and it just,
Well,
you never get used to it.
Well, that was actually helped me join the movement because I had a job in a hospital, but I was doing all this yoga and I wanted more time for it, because I had to drive into the city and this and. So after a year at this one, in one hospital, inhalation therapy, so I was a good, worker. So they gave me a good, and then it was an ad, it's clipping. I had prayed to the famous painting of the Super Soul with red, that it was a poster. They made that in Brooklyn, all the artists were there. And I had that on my wall, and I prayed, please give me something so I can take the next step. I felt like I needed something. So the very next day, on the wall in the clipboard, there was a cutting from a paper advertising a night shift in the hospital, right? Much closer to where I lived. So this is Krishna's arrangement. So I'll be able to do more yoga. I'll be able to go into the city more. I thought it was a great boon, So I got the recommendation. I went over there, and the first week was just training, and then I said, okay, you're hired, like that. But it was a much smaller hospital. All the patients were asleep, so there wasn't really much for me to do. And I had been practicing all this yoga and pranayama and everything, and so I was haunted. I mean, it was like, because there's a lot of ghosts in there. That people die like anything. Anyway, after a week, I said, I can't do this. I might as well just join the temple. That's how I joined. Otherwise.
It's another microphone.
He was in Los Angeles one time. He was in his room, and it was nighttime, and then Tamal Krishna Goswami was there, and then so Srila Prabhupada Maharaj explains what happened was Srila Prabhupada, he stood up on the bed, and then he put the blanket around him, and then he said, now I'm gonna waste some time. He was getting ready to go to sleep. Now Maharaj was wondering, I don't know why Prabhupada stood up on the bed, but anyways, that's what he did. He said, now I'm going to waste some time.
You mentioned earlier about Maya never sleeps, and then also that point that devotee should be satisfied. So I was thinking about sometimes when people come to Krishna consciousness, they get promoted to the mode of goodness, and on the preface of being satisfied, they may take a step back and look at like this world actually is not so bad because they're like in the mode of goodness, and so they're looking, everything they perceive is quite good, and so instead of like kind of making progress on, they might think like, oh, let me go back to my life and my material life, because it actually wasn't so bad, you know, I was just looking at it wrong, or I was living wrong, but
You're not thinking like that, are you?
not yet. You could clear up some.
What to say about that? Yeah, that's the pitfall. That must be very careful. Mode of goodness has a sense of happiness and satisfaction and knowledge, and everything's just fine. Just like the heavenly planets and so on. Everything's just fine. No, and it's not. And it's a pitfall. It's a trick. It's a snare. You have to be very, very careful. Like that. Yeah. Fortunately, in Kali Yuga, mode of goodness doesn't last very long anywhere. The idea of mode of goodness is going to OB peoples or something like that. It's like, I have no idea what the mode of goodness is, really. You know, just feeling good because you got to ripe some really tasty oranges or something. They were actually tree ripened Mahabharats or something. Oh, I'm a mode of goodness. No, passionate ignorance is like really deep in Kali Yuga. So even their idea of goodness is pretty pathetic, like that. You know, so like that. So we probably should end here. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.